guys, welcome back to the second half of the 2016 CXC Biology Past paper. I'm your host, Ms. Kim. So today we'll be continuing from our last video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to let us know that you like the content. Let us get into the video. Question 31. The essential vitamin and mineral salt required for blood clotting in humans are, so now we're looking for the vitamin and also the mineral that can aid in blood clotting. So we have A, vitamin A and magnesium, which would be the mineral. B, vitamin C and potassium. C, vitamin B and sodium. And then D, vitamin K and calcium. So the answer is definitely D, vitamin K and calcium. Question 32. Under which conditions will the rate of transpiration in plants be the highest? So we're looking for the rate of transpiration, the highest. Remember, transpiration is the loss of water from plants. So we have A, sunny and low wind speed. B, sunny and high wind speed. C, cloudy and low wind speed. And then D, cloudy and high wind speed. So this is a pretty simple one. If we're talking about water being lost from plants, we have to eliminate cloudy. Water won't be lost as much on a cloudy day. So C and D are out of it. So we're stuck with A and B. So is it sunny, low wind speed or sunny, high wind speed? So if you want a lot of water to be lost, it has to be sunny and high wind speed. So there's a lot of wind. So it's a windy day. So 33. Translocation of sucrose in plants occurs via specialized vessels, which are, since they're talking about the movement of sucrose, which is the food in plants, then we have to think about the phloem. So we have A, are dead nerve cells, that is not a characteristic of the phloem. B, are abundant in mitochondria. C, contain stiff pores in their end walls. D, are thin hollow tubes of lignin. So the only answer that talk about the phloem here is C. It has stiff pores in their end walls. So 34. Which of the following option correctly matches the storage organs to their stored nutrients? So we have to find which nutrients would be in these organs. So we have roots, fruits, and liver. So we have A, starch for the roots, fruits, sucrose, then the liver would have glycogen. So B, we have starch, then fructose, then the liver, glucose. Then C, protein. For the fruits, we have glucose, and then for the liver, we have fats. Then D, we have fat. For fruit is glucose, and then for the liver is glycogen. Sorry. So if you don't know, you can actually use eliminations to know what the answer is. All right. So glucose and fats are not stored in the liver. So we would immediately eliminate B and C. So now we're stuck with A and D. So glycogen is stored in the liver. So the next thing, you can either look at the fruit to see which one. So fruits store glucose or is it sucrose? You may be a little bit confused. So what you can do is maybe go over to the roots. If you look at it, we have starch and fats. We all know that the roots do not store fats. So the only option would have been A. So that would have meant that fruits store sucrose and not glucose. All right. 35. The best description of the role of excretion in living organism is to A, produce urine, B, produce feces, C, get rid of toxic waste, D, get rid of excess water. So the answer is definitely C. 36. Item 36 refers to the following diagram of a mammalian kidney nephron. So we have the nephron. As usual, move to the question. Which option correctly identifies the functions of the parts labeled I, 2, and 3? So now we can go back to the diagram and look at it. So to answer this question, we have to know what I, 2, and 3 are. So I is definitely, if we look at it, is the Bowman capsule, and then inside would have the glomerulus. 2 is the proximal convoluted tubule, and then 3 is the loop of Henle. So because we have identified the parts, now we have to know their functions, and this is going to help us in answering the question. So if we know that I is the Bowman's capsule, we already know that I is going to deal with ultrafiltration. So based on these answers, we already know that only A and B has ultrafiltration as I. The next thing is that we have to know what the proximal convoluted tubule does. And what it does is reabsorb glucose. So 2 selective reabsorption. So we would know that B is the answer based on knowing the function and elimination. So 3, which is the loop of Henle, would be under the influence of the ADH. Question 37. Which of the following organs does the mammalian skeleton protect? So we have A, stomach, B, pancreas, C, bladder, D, duodenum. So the answer is definitely the stomach. Question 38. Which of the following correctly describes movement in plants? So we have A, reversible whole or part movement. B, reversible whole or part movement. C, irreversible growth or part movement. D, reversible growth or part movement. So the first thing, we just have to realize that they're asking us for movements in plants. So it's going to be irreversible or reversible. And it has to be irreversible because once the plant has grown or has started to grow, you will not see that tall plant going back to being small. It cannot undo its growth. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So we know it has to be irreversible, and that is A or C. So the next thing we have to know, is it whole movement or is it growth movement? And we now know that our answer has to be growth movement. So the answer is C. So plants will exhibit a reversible growth or part movement. 39. Which of the following options best describe the term stimulus and response? So before we even get into it, you have to know what you're looking for. So remember, a stimulus is the change in the environment, and a response is whatever action or motion you're gonna do whenever you detect that change. All right? So it's the reaction, that's your response to the change, which is the stimulus. So we know what we're looking for now, so we can actually read through and look for the answer. So A, a deliberate provocation of an organism. For the response, the movement of an organism, no. B, an organism exposure to sunlight. Then for the response, the growth of the organism away from light, no. C, a wave of excitement in an organism. And then for the response, locomotion of the organism. So we're hoping it's D now. So A, so a detectable change in the organism's environment, which that's what we said, a change in the environment. And then an organism's reaction to the stimulus. So we know that the answer is D, based on the information that we would have known from the beginning. Question 40. Items 40 refers to the following diagram. Move to the question. So we have, which of the following options correctly identify the structure I, 2, and 3? So we have A, receptor, relay nerve, then effector. B, skin, intermediate nerve, then muscle. C, sensory nerve, spinal nerve, then effector. Then D, receptor, spinal nerve, then effector. So let us look at the diagram now. So looking at it, we can tell that I is definitely the receptor. 3 is definitely the effector. So if we go back now, so we realize that all of them except B have effectors at the end. And then, so for the receptor, we would now know that B and C is out of it because we know that I is the receptor and B and C don't have I as the receptor. So now we're stuck between A and D. So is 2 the relay nerve or is it the spinal nerve? Let us go back again. So looking at the diagram, 2 would definitely be the spinal nerve. So the answer would definitely be D. 41. Item 41 refers to the following diagram of the skin. The region which acts in a similar manner to SPF, which is sun protection factor cream, is. So let us look at the diagram of the skin. So we have to identify the area so we can know which one is going to act as a SPF. So we have I, which is the top layer of the skin or the cornified layer. Then we have 2, which is the Malpighian layer. And 3 looks like it wants to be the sebaceous gland. Usually a gland is here, but I'm not seeing it. And then 4 is a part of the capillary network. So to be the SPF, it has to be one of these layers that is close to the top. All right. So looking at it, and we identified that 2 is the Malpighian layer. So guess what? That's the answer, 2, which is the Malpighian layer. It is also known as the pigmented layer, and it's going to protect the lower layers from damage by ultraviolet light or sunlight. All right, so the answer is 2. Let us move on to 42. The function of the choroid layer in the eye is to A, focus most light rays, B, prevent internal reflection, C, maintain the shape of the eyeball, D, control the amount of light entering the eye. So the answer is definitely B, prevent internal reflection. 43. Items 43 refers to the following diagram which illustrates a measurement of growth in living organism. Which of the following is an incorrect label for the y-axis? So we have a graph and they're telling us it's measurement of growth. So the y-axis would be this side. So which of them would be an incorrect labeling since we're talking about measurement of growth? So we have A, length, B, mass, C, number of leaves, D, units of time. So the answer is definitely D, units of time, because units of time are always on the x-axis. All right, moving on. 44. Items 44 refers to the following activity involved in the menstrual cycle. So we have I, repair of the uterus lining, 2, ovulation, 3, shedding of the uterus lining, and 4, development of the Graafian follicle. Which of the following is the correct sequence of activity? So we have to think about it. So we have development of the Graafian follicle. Yes, I'll say that's the first thing. Then shedding of the uterus lining, yes, that would have been menstruation, and then ovulation would happen, and then the repair of the uterus lining. So we're going backwards. So it's IV. So the only 2 that start with IV, it's C and D. So IV, then 3. So it's D. IV, then 3, then 2, then 1. 45. Contraception is used primarily to A, limit the size of family, B, cause infertility in humans, C, prevent the spread of sexually transmitted infection, D, increase the world's population. So the answer is definitely A, limit the size of family. So we know B is out of it, and we know D would be out of it. But the main reason why contraception or contraceptive were created was to limit the size of family, not necessarily to prevent the spread of STIs. 46. Where does fertilization of an egg cell or ovum occur in the flowering plant? So we have A, stigma, B, endosperm, C, pollen grain, D, embryo sac. So the answer has to be the embryo sac. 47. Items 47 refers to the following diagram. Which of the labeled parts is responsible for the production of the male gamete? So looking at the diagram, we can already see the answer. It's definitely 2. All right. Filament anther, which is at the end. So they contain the pollen grain. So it's 2. 48. A vector is defined as an organism that A, bites human, B, causes disease, C, lives on other organisms, D, transmit disease organism. So the answer is definitely D, transmit disease organism. 49. Which of the following organisms transmit the yellow fever virus? So we have A, clulegs, B, testes, C, anopheles, and D, Aedes aegypti. So the answer is the Aedes aegypti mosquito. 50. Which of the following are used in the management of diabetes? So we have I, diet, 2, exercise, 3, meditation. So we're talking about management of diabetes. So which one of them will help? So remember, diabetes is high blood sugar, high glucose level in your body, not being able to properly monitor the glucose level. So diet could be a way to manage it. Exercise also. So I'll go with I and 2. 51. Which of the following option correctly describes DNA chromosome, gene, and allele? So we have A, deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA plus histamine, unit that codes for a specific protein, an alternate form of a gene. So B, unit that codes for a specific protein, an alternate form of a gene, DNA plus protein, and histone. For C now, nucleic acid that has all the genetic information, DNA plus histone, the smallest unit of inheritance, alternate form of a gene. D, nucleic acid that has all the genetic information, the smallest unit of inheritance, unit that codes for a specific protein, DNA plus protein. So definitely for DNA, we are looking for DNA to have the genetic information. So the only one that talks about DNA having the genetic information is C and D. So B and A are out of it. So now for chromosome contains DNA and histone. The gene would definitely be the smallest unit of inheritance, and an allele is just the alternate form of a gene. So the answer is definitely C. 52. As a result of mitosis, each daughter cell has A, a variable number of chromosomes, B, twice the number of chromosomes as the parent, C, the same number of chromosomes as the parent, and D, half the number of chromosomes as the parent. So because we're talking about mitosis, the answer has to be the same amount, and that is C. Question 53. Tarzan and Jane, both of whom are heterozygous for blood groups A and B, respectively, have offspring that are likely to be. So to do this, or to get the answer, we have to do the genetic crossing. So I went ahead and I created a Punnett square for us to work with. So now remember, they told us that both parents, Tarzan and Jane, are heterozygous, meaning that they would have a different blood group or blood type mixed in with the A. So if they were homozygous, they would have 2A. So the father, Tarzan, would have capital A and capital A, and the mother, Jane, would have capital B and capital B if they were homozygous. But because they're not, they're heterozygous. And the other way to get blood group A is having it with O. So they are both OA for Tarzan and OB for Jane. So we would put O in one and then A in the next And that would be for the father. And then for the mother, same thing, O in one, B for the next. All right. Perfect. So O times O give us O. So you don't have to put 2O when you're crossing O. O times A give you OA. All right. O times B give you OB. And then B times A give you AB. So now these would have been all the offspring that Tarzan and Jane can get. So all of them would have been 1 out of the 4. To put them in percentage, it would have been 1 over 4 times 100 over 1. 4 into itself, 1 time, 4 into 100, 25. So you would have seen the answer is B, it's 25 for all of them. 25 here, 25 there, 25 here, 25 here. All right, let us move on to the next question. 54. Zane, the son of Tarzan and Jane, may have inherited the red-green colorblindness gene from his parents. Neither Tarzan nor Jane is colorblind. If N represents the allele for normal vision and small n represents the allele for colorblindness, the genotype of the parent would most likely be. So for this one, it's pretty simple. You don't necessarily have to do a cross to get this one. You can actually reason it out. So let's read it again to see which information they're giving us. So they're telling us Zane, which would be the child of Tarzan and Jane, have inherited the colorblindness gene. It also told us that neither Jane nor Tarzan is colorblind. So that means that both his parents are carriers of the colorblindness disease. So if capital N represents the allele for normal vision and common N represents the allele for colorblindness, the genotype of the parents would be, so normally what I do, I'll write it down. So N, big N, equals normal So I'm going to write NOR for normal. And then little n equal, I'm going to try to write COL for color blindness. All right. So let us look at the options that we have. So because it would have been on the sex allele, we already know that males have X and Y, right? And then females would have 2X. So the M for the male, female have 2X. I'm going to put FM for female, right? So F, M. So now they are carriers of the gene. So color blindness is a disease that is normally shown in males. And if Tarzan doesn't have it, if it's shown in male and they're telling us that Tarzan does not show any color blindness, that means that he does not have it. So on his gene, we would have capital N. Please remember that we can only the X gene can carry any disease. The Y does not carry anything. The Y is there to distinguish male from female. Cool. So now that means that the mother has to be a carrier. meaning that the mother would have a regular N, capital N, and then a common N since she's not exhibiting any color blindness symptoms, so she would have been the carrier. So Tarzan's parent gene must look like the father have capital N, the mother have one capital N and a common N. All right, so that is definitely A. If Tarzan would have had a common N like B, guys, guess what? He would have been colorblind. All right. So that's why B and C is definitely out. So we would have been stuck with A and D, as both A and D have Tarzan having capital N. But if we look at this, for Jane, in D, she would have 2 common N, and having 2 common N would mean that Jane is colorblind, but they're telling us that she is not. So she has to be a carrier, and it has to be A. Question 55. Variation in population is due to I, mutation, 2, crossing over, 3, asexual reproduction, 4, random segregation. So the answer would definitely exclude asexual reproduction. There is no variation in asexual reproduction. So 3 is out of it. So everything with 3 is out of it, which is all the answers except B. So the answer is B. All right. 56. Variation is important to population because it ensures A, diversity, B, conformity, C, adaptability, D, abnormality. The answer is definitely diversity. Question 57. Speciation may be due to I, geographical isolation, 2, behavioral differences in courtship, 3, mutation. So the answer would definitely be I and 2. So that is B. Which of the following is true about natural and artificial selection? So we're looking for what is true about both. So A, occurs in domestic population, occurs in natural population. Then B, involves genetic modification, largely controlled by the environment. Then C, environment acts on the population which adapts. Then D, selective breeding for a particular trait. And then D, faster process and then slower process. So we're trying to find which one is true about them. So we know that D is out of it because natural selection is not fast. Occurs in domestic population, A is out of it also. B is out of it because natural selection does not involve any genetic modification. So the answer is C. Environment acts on the population which adapts. And then for artificial, selective breeding for a particular trait. So guys, you can always use elimination to find your answer if you're not sure. Eliminate what you know, and then you'll find your answer. 59. Which of the following is an ecological implication of genetic engineering? So we have A, loss of biodiversity, B, humans playing God, C, higher prices for organic food, of allergic reaction. So the answer is definitely A, loss of biodiversity. Question 60. Which of the following describe the process of genetic engineering? So we have A, tissue sample is treated to promote cells. B, stem cells are grown and used to treat medical problems. C, chromosomes from the egg cells are replaced by the nucleus from a somatic cell. D, a gene is inserted into a vector, which then is used to transfer the gene to a host cell. So the answer is definitely D. So guys, we're at the end of another video. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Please stay tuned. We have some new content coming where we're doing paper 2 revision. Please look out for that. And remember, we also have our HSB series. Please go over and check that out.